Mike's going to now tell you why Atos sucks, in his opinion, and the Death Squad's the best.
I'm not going to say that.
I'm Justin Lesko, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt and a law enforcement officer.
So the Danaher Death Squad is no more. It seems to be official. John Danaher posted on Instagram, and some of the guys followed suit, announcing the group is splitting up. One of the most dominant teams in Jiu-Jitsu is going their separate ways.
Yeah, so with that being said, it kind of got us thinking, who can we look to as the best team in Jiu-Jitsu right now?
Well, this is going to be one of the biggest debates in Jiu-Jitsu.
We've also got some other things that we're going to be debating, but at least there's one thing that we can agree on.
That you can't pass my guard.
Stop it right now.
That there are more exciting events at this year's Olympics than wrestling.
Now I know you're lying through your teeth. Now you're just doing this to aggravate me.
Well, the good news is that even though Mike can't pass my guard, Epic Roll has him covered, so he'll still look really cool while he can't pass.
Even Justin, when he's sitting there like a fucking dork watching his cycling or whatever the fuck he's watching this week, they got you covered. At least people like Justin at that point could still feel cool.
All right, well, maybe I deserve that, but Epic Roll apparel is designed by grapplers for grapplers, and you can get 15% off your order by using the coupon code podcast15 at epicrollbjj.com.
They have literally anything that you could need. Hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, sweatpants, shorts, gis, rash guards, coffee mugs, artwork. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Give them a follow on Instagram as well at epicrollbjj. And don't forget our coupon code podcast15 to get a sweet discount at epicrollbjj.com. Now, let's argue. Welcome to That Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. Are you more jealous of my brand new spectacular microphone or my brand new spectacular t-shirt? Which has you more envious?
The t-shirt.
Well, don't worry, I have a t-shirt for you here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like you to mail it to me.
I'm not going to mail it to you. I'm just going to keep it. If you don't come claim it within a week, I'm going to just wear it.
What are you going to do? Sleep in it? Is that going to be?
It's a 3X, so it might be a little tight on you, but I'll be slimming in it.
Absolutely not. It's a large, but you know, it'll be. What are those things? The
Snuggie.
Yeah, it's a Snuggie. It's Justin's new Epic Roll makes Snuggies for Justin.
A Snuggie is just a bathrobe that you put on backwards.
Mm-hmm.
This is not why people listen to our show. So the Danaher Death Squad has broken up, and we're gonna talk about it just like briefly because like as we're pushing record on the computers today, there's still news coming out about it. So if we record an episode all about a breaking story, by the time I edit it and put it out, our episode won't make any sense because everything might have changed. So what we know at this point, because we're in the past to you, the listener, who's in our future, Gordon Ryan is moving to Austin, Texas to open a school. Craig Jones and Nikki Ryan and Ethan Krenlenstein and who else? One more?
Craig Jones, Nikki Ryan, Nikki Rod, and Ethan Krenlenstein are staying in Puerto Rico.
Danaher had a very interesting post where he announced the split, and the one line that stuck out to me the most was, most of us still get along very well, which makes you think that maybe there was like a Yoko Ono type situation and people weren't getting along. To that effect, Gary Tonin, who was a member of the Death Squad, removed all of his posts on Instagram that had Gordon Ryan in them, and those two were sort of the original members of the Death Squad. So that's just what we know.
If that really is the case, it's so silly. It's so stupid. But yeah, it's pointless to speculate. What we do know is that Gordon Ryan announced that he's moving to Austin, Texas to open up an academy. We don't know who's going with him. He's kind of hinted that Danaher's going to be with him.
Well, I don't listen to every single Joe Rogan podcast, but I saw someone commented that Rogan may have slipped up a bit and said that Danaher was moving to Austin on a recent episode, which wasn't public knowledge at the time. So that could track that. This is why we're not going to talk about this topic super in depth, because so many things are happening all at once. But
I mean, the magnitude of it is noteworthy. It's just, this is the most polarizing jiu-jitsu squad that has ever been around.
We had actually planned for a while to do an episode talking about where some of these big teams ranked, and the debate amongst guys who are big Gordon fans and guys who are big Andre Galvo and Atos fans, and some of those big debates. And then today this all popped off, so we had to scramble a little bit before we pushed play. But like I said at the top, this is what we know at this point. I'm sure by the time this episode comes out, we'll probably have even more details to know. But Mike's going to now tell you why Atos sucks, in his opinion, and the Death Squad's the best.
I'm not going to say that. So, no, I think that when you look at it, there wasn't remember when Drysdale went off on that like douchey rant?
Yep.
It wasn't that he was false in his assertions that Checkmat and Gracie Baja and Alliance are all like top level teams. They are. They're three of the best teams in the world. The problem that we had on here with Drysdale's comments was that he was just because of his personal bias to Gordon Ryan and those guys, that he was just kind of discrediting the work that Danaher's squad did. But separate of that, those are three of the best teams in the world: Atos, Checkmat, Gracie Baja, Alliance, or four of them. And that's not going to change. That's not going to be impacted at all. The one thing that you can say about those four teams is they've gained notoriety in gi and no gi, so they weren't really being impacted, in the gi side, on the gi side of things, by the Danaher squad anyway.
Gracie Baja probably has the most like team titles at Worlds, right? They're probably the most accomplished in the team competition. You think Atos probably has the most like individual championships? So if you're looking just at that perspective, it's hard to say who's the best team, who's had the biggest impact on the sport and the biggest influence in technique. Probably the Death Squad, right? So I think it all depends on how you look at who's the most important team, who's the best team, who's the most significant team. Personally, I feel like the Death Squad has impacted my game the most because I think I play a closer style to the Gordon Ryan style than I do to the Andre Galvo style. But we'll call it lowercase versions of their style. But for impact and for who I would be most excited to see, it's not Atos, and that's not a slight against them. It's just I want to watch a similar technique to mine.
So they have, if you look at it, they have the Rotolo brothers. They have Kynan Duarte, Lucas Barbosa, Andre Galvo, Ronaldo Jr.
Yeah, it's a stacked roster. It's a stacked roster.
Josh Hinger, but like you said, these are guys who are capable of making noise individually. These are guys who, in the event that these Danaher guys just like up and leave, these are the guys that are going to benefit in the no-gi world, like these individuals. With that being said, I don't see that happening, especially if that room in Puerto Rico. So there's speculation that Craig Jones, we were talking about it, Craig Jones, Nicky Rod, Nicky Ryan, and Krenlenstein are all staying together in Puerto Rico. And if there's truth to that, then I don't foresee their games dropping off significantly.
Side note, I did offer Craig Jones a new position at our potential new school as head instructor for a very handsome salary of no more than $50 a week on Instagram today. And he has yet to get back to me, so stay tuned. I'll keep you posted.
We could give him a place to stay. Like the industrial parks where we're looking right now, they're very nice. I mean, there's
we'll get him a camper. We'll put like a little
perfect idea. I was actually thinking of like a bunk room for him, with like a little TV and a mini fridge, So
yeah, that works too.
Craig, just
but
get back.
If he gets that, if he gets that, he's not getting $50 a week. If he's getting a place to live,
yeah, it's one or the other.
One burrito a day from 7-Eleven, he's not getting $50.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Yeah.
So
cool. I think the biggest debate in jiu-jitsu, if you look past like who would beat who, which team is better, it has to be guard puller versus guard passer. Because I think there's two camps and both thinks that the other is stupid. And I think what camp we fall into. I would put myself into the guard puller category. But guard passers really hate guard pullers.
Yeah, I would just put you in the category of your wrestling sucks, so you sit on your ass a lot. But anyway, it's a debate for another day. It's all right. Your wrestling's terrible. But anyway, yeah, it's. I think that the game, as it has kind of evolved towards these more offensive guards, it's also evolved to the point where these lazy guard players are getting penalized, which I think it should be, right? So if you're going to pull guard, it should be to engage into some type of, you should be using it to get into some type of offensive position, and it kind of started with ADCC with, the penalizing for pulling guard. And even IBJJF has kind of modified their rule set where they've actually, they're DQing people now, So as the sport has evolved, I like that these rule sets have been modified to encourage people, if you are going to pull guard, that it better be part of an offensive game plan.
Well, I won a lot of MMA fights by taking people down and punching them in the face. I pulled guard in 0 MMA fights. But when you remove the threat of your opponent's going to get punched in the face to help set up your wrestling, it's just so much work to look for a takedown for at most 2 points. Like,
how many, this is the craziest thing too. How many MMA fights did you have? Total, amateur and pro.
I think I was 6-2 as an amateur, and then 1-3 as a pro.
All right, so 6-2, that's 8, and then 4, that's 12. So you took 12 people down. The most amazing thing is that there's 12 people in this world with shittier wrestling than you. I can't believe that to be the case. And not only are there 12 people, but you've managed to meet all 12 people.
This is where the benefit of being the video editor. And if you're not watching the YouTube version, you're just listening to the audio, you can go to our YouTube and see me put the clip up of me taking Mike down over and over and over. I'll put it on a loop right now.
Okay, that's fine.
That was a nice loop for everyone to enjoy.
Anyway, so it would be, if we were in a street, we've gone over this before, but Justin, does things to purposely avoid this, like get hurt or have children to purposely avoid wrestling matches, but it's okay. If we had a wrestling match, I stand by this. I don't know, depending on how long the wrestling match is, I don't know if Justin would take me down. I don't know. I'm leaning more towards no. If it was just a straight wrestling match, it would be very ugly.
Well, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, because I would say before the fall, we could probably have a wrestling competition and your boy's taking home the win. But back to the original point.
Anyway,
I'm more likely to pull guard in competition because I think that I have a active guard. I have a very offensive guard, and I prefer attacking with my guard as opposed to being on top in someone else's half guard where I feel like my attacks are limited. Being on top in side control where I feel like I'm spending more time trying to keep a position as opposed to set up dominant submissions. And I think I'm a little trickier in my guard game. So I'm more likely to pull. For anyone who may potentially face me in a super fight or a tournament, I will probably pull. But I do like throwing people too. I think I try to go into most matches with the assumption that I'm going to feel it out. And if I don't feel really confident in the ability to hit a throw, I'll probably pull with good grips established and get right to work. I'm not jumping guard. People who jump close guard are like, you deserve all the hate you get, and you make guard pullers look bad. But
I will say this, like, you have insane grip strength. Like, insane grip strength for 100 and, yeah, it's like vice grips on your gi, especially in the gi. Like, even in your collar ties when we're in no gi, like, I can feel your grip strength, but it's almost like my lapels are in vices. So when you get those grips, I feel like I am likely to get thrown. So
you heard it. I'm saving that clip. I'm saying that's gonna be the intro with the wrestling takedown competition.
But yeah, I don't think that if I like assess your stand up, or your takedowns, it's more of a judo based thing. Like you're not somebody who's a traditional wrestler. Like you can take people down, but you like to set up your takedowns with your grips, and your throws.
I'm not shooting a blast double from the center. Like that's just not me. It's just not my game.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even like Nogi, like someone like Craig Jones who will sit down right at the start of a match, will look to come forward and advance and set up his game. I think that's okay. I don't think people should hate guard pullers in that sense. Like if someone's being active, what does it matter how they're being active? If you have a good guard, why am I going to not use my good guard because someone else doesn't like it? But speaking of gi or no gi, I think that's another big debate between people who only want to train in the gi and people who only want to train no gi. Like the Death Squad guys are obviously only no gi players. Mikey Musumeci just did 5+ years of only competing in the gi before now only competing no gi. I go back and forth. Like there's times where I'm like, I only want the gi. I'm super excited for gi days, and no gi, I'm just trying to get through it.
Right.
And then like the next week it switches and I'm all about no gi and I just want to play leg locks and hunt for heels, and the gi, I'm just kind of like, all right, whatever the gi. I kind of I change camps quite regularly.
It wasn't until I really started training at NPR a couple of years ago with Danny Myra. I just used to take my game in the gi and try to transfer it into no gi, and it wasn't until like I was training over there that my outlook got completely changed, and you have to essentially have two different approaches, right? One in the gi and one in the no gi. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to take my jacket off and do the same shit that I was doing. It just doesn't work like that. So, I was like strictly a gi player, and I would go to no gi classes and everything, but I've actually started to enjoy no gi a little bit more.
But would you agree with me that people should train both, that you shouldn't be a specialist unless you're Gordon Ryan making all your money by being a no-gi specialist, or unless you're Craig Jones making all your money? Like if you're an average hobbyist, it's okay to have a preference, but you should train in both, in my less than humble opinion.
Yeah. All right, guys, we just want to take a quick break to let you know about all the bonus content we have coming your way shortly.
We put out a lot of bonus content each month, like our blooper reel,
which is out now,
and our monthly Q&A episode,
which is coming out within the next few days.
And our member area gets you access to exclusive contents and giveaways. Plus, you can get access to episodes before anyone else.
The link to our channels below. This is a great way to get some more of your favorite YouTubers in your life.
Are we officially YouTubers now?
Well, I don't know, Justin. This is on YouTube, so.
And now back to the show. I think I have a controversial one.
Okay, let me have it. Let me hear it. I'll be the judge of that. Objection.
I texted you this earlier. Like last week we talked about this, because I actually saw this on a Reddit post a couple weeks ago. And someone had said, is it okay to take steroids if you're an older competitor and you want to compete in a lower division? So if you're like Masters 3 and you want to compete in adult, is it okay to take the juice to level things out?
No.
Right. That's what I said, no. But I think that there is a large contingency of people in jiu-jitsu who think that steroids are no biggie, and if you're just competing, what does it matter? And a juice versus no juice camp. And
there's people in jiu-jitsu who think that it's okay to take steroids regardless of where you're competing. Like they'll compete in the adult division, and they'll compete in the in the regular age bracket, and that's how old they are. It's not people that are just jumping down weight or jumping down age divisions. So
no, but that post got me thinking of like, there are people, and that's why I texted you. Do you think as we get older and we are competing against people who are Masters 2, Masters 3, if we're still competing when we're 50, 60 years old, is there a direct correlation between the age at which you compete and the percentage of people at steroids? So like the older your age, the higher percentage there is of the juice. I think that there is, but yeah. It's kind of the same thing with like Do you think that elite competitors should or should not be drug tested? If everyone's going to do it, should we just say, Gordon and Andre, go ahead, juice to the gills. Let's see what happens when you guys compete against each other and let's go? Or should we have like strict drug testing and say, keep the sport a little more clean?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm against it. And I'm even against like testosterone replacement as it pertains to sports. You know, I think that there should be levels, and there are, and anything above those levels, if you have elevated levels, then it should be essentially banned. You know, I don't know, like maybe in 20 years, like if it can drastically improve your quality of life, like yeah, maybe I'll take it and then, but I just don't see it. And I'm all for just a clean sport. So regardless of what it is, any performance enhancing drugs, anabolic steroids, EPOs, which by the way, if anybody go and read on these, we talked about this on here before about these EPOs. Go and read up on them again. They just posted something. I read a couple articles because it became relevant again because Dillashaw just came back from his suspension. But I was reading articles.
Yeah, people were big time mad at me on Twitter because everyone was talking about how great Dillashaw looked in his return fight, which close decision win. You can give it to Sandhagen, but I just was reminding people that this guy was a cheater, right? Like we just didn't like this guy a few weeks ago because he was a big time cheater. Like he's a cheater, right? And people got real mad about calling a cheater. So I guess tread carefully on Twitter.
So EPOs are I think it should be almost like a mortal sin in any type of sport that requires any type of cardiovascular endurance because it increases the amount of red blood cells that you have in your body, and that in turn increases the amount of oxygen that you're getting to your muscles and to everything else, you know? So it increases the amount of oxygen you're getting, it increases the amount of red blood cells, and therefore it just gives you like incredible cardio. That's the short of it. And there's people out there who make it sound much more intelligent than I did. There's a ton of articles. There's a ton of recent
articles. I'm right
here.
I can explain it. I'm right here.
I literally just explained it as good as Justin would. However, there's a lot of recent articles out there. So that it's not going to make you bigger. It's not going to make you stronger necessarily, but it's going to increase your cardio. So EPOs, anabolic steroids, even testosterone, like shit like that that's going to give you any type of edge, it should be banned. It's just personal opinion. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are going to disagree with it. It's totally fine.
Well, the thing with EPO too is you think of like, yes, in competition, TJ Dillashaw was going to have amazing cardio compared to whoever he was fighting against because he was on EPO. What you don't really think about sometimes is the training benefit, because if he can train for 2 hours longer than his opponent every single day because of the EPO that he's taking, that has a compounding effect. If after 8 or 12 or 16 weeks of training camp, if every training session was 2 hours longer, you got a lot more work in. And I agree with you. Keep it clean. I agree with you. Let's not let Dillashaw off the hook just because he had a good fight against Sandhagen and people like his style. Like, you cheated. No one cheats by taking steroids by accident. No one shoots up behind their own back. So anytime that someone gets popped for this, like, let's not give them too big of a cushion here.
Right. So I don't really get this argument because, I think that jiu-jitsu is effective regardless. But there's always been the argument of sport jiu-jitsu versus street jiu-jitsu, and there's also, more to that is that sport jiu-jitsu really isn't effective on the street. And right. And we've all heard it, right? And obviously I'm not talking about, fucking baramboloing people on the street or anything like that. But in general, sport jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? I get that there are some techniques that wouldn't be the best to do on the street. We can agree on that? But
but are you gonna tell me that a lapel guard player is not gonna know what to do in a fist fight? That like if I'm a guard puller, I won't know what to do if someone grabs me from behind. Like a person who's trained in jiu-jitsu, but they like the berimbolo, if they're in a street fight, they're automatically a civilian again and don't know what to do. Like, it's a stupid argument, and I get the side that's like jiu-jitsu for self-defense, focus on self-defense, you should learn self-defense, and I agree. Doing a week of your curriculum as self-defense, like, yeah, fine. It's not fun. Like, it's not my favorite week, but whatever. But making your whole school only about self-defense,
so
not for me.
We've actually talked about this on here before with Steve McGee from 609, and they implement something down there where it's like, I think they call it Street Week or something, and it's all like it's all defensive tactics kind of stuff, self-defense, defensive tactics. And then the rest of the month, they're back to doing what would technically be called sport jiu-jitsu. And guess what? If you go down there, they're fucking hammers down there. Like, they're really good at jiu-jitsu. Here's the deal. If you take somebody who is, and this is just the street jiu-jitsu, analyzing their mindset. If you take somebody who's a purple belt in sport jiu-jitsu and you take somebody who's a white belt in street jiu-jitsu, or the Gracie survival tactics, I got news for you. The purple belt in sport jiu-jitsu is going to beat the fuck out of the guy who had you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's just
right.
It's still jiu-jitsu. It still has practical elements to it.
Right.
So
any blue belt in jiu-jitsu will beat up any non-trained person.
Right. 100%.
Like, yeah, weight becomes a factor at, like, if you're a blue belt 35, 40 pounds, blue belt versus untrained, purple belt, like maybe 50 pounds and up, like, you can have like some problems, you know what I mean? If you're surviving against a person who outweighs you by that much, yeah, like those are real things. But a blue belt is going to be able to handle themselves against any untrained person, whether or not they've ever done okay, so now this guy grabs you from behind. You step to the back. Like, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. But this kind of bleeds into another big debate in jiu-jitsu. The old school, fundamentals only, hesitant to innovate camp, which would be like the Gracie camp, versus we're going bolo, we're going leg locks, we're going worm guard, like new school, advancing the sport, innovative techniques. And I'll let you go first because everyone knows what camp I fall in. But
no, and I'm not as much of as a like an innovative jiu-jitsu player as Justin is, but at the same time, so like I'm a half guard player, and then my top game is based on pressure passing. At the core of those two things is old school jiu-jitsu. They're old school. They're not really new or innovative. However, the intricacies that I like to implement into my game, they're more modern. I'm just not like an old school half guard player, where it's either the old school sweep, or I like to incorporate lapels. I like to incorporate, butterfly hooks into the half guard. So I'm a little bit of a mix there. Not like Justin, who hates old school and old people. Justin actually beats up old.
That's not true. I do this show with you. That's not true. That's not true at all.
Just contrary to what you believe, I'm actually older than Justin. I know Justin looks like he's at least 43, but he's not. He's 42. So
I was choked.
Yeah.
I'm very aware that you need fundamental techniques to have more advanced techniques. You can't do the berimbolo if you can't play closed guard. Like, you need those basic skills, the manipulation of another person's body, that you can't just jump right into the deep end. And Keenan had a good quote that stuck with me that I heard a long time ago, where he says that if it doesn't work at the highest levels of competition, it just doesn't work. And at the highest levels of competition, you still see fundamental techniques. Roger Gracie still wins fights via X choke from mount. Like, those techniques aren't going anywhere for a reason. But that doesn't mean that you can't improve on them, and that doesn't mean that you have to be resistant to, like, the phrase "this is the way we've always done it" is a terrible thing. So if you want to play the leg lock game, you need to understand how half guard works, how butterfly hooks work. You need all of those building blocks, and it's easy to fall into I only like new things, or it's easy to fall into I only like close guard to sweep and then get them out and then go for the choke. I think you need to have a little bit of both camps, and your game should involve a little bit of both camps. But if I had to pick one, I would skip out on self-defense week, and I would skip out on like armbar from close guard week, and I would skip right ahead to advanced entries into the saddle week. But that's just me.
See, he hates old people.
Old people, in my opinion. No, I'm just going to stop the sentence there, because there's nothing good that I can say after that sentence that's not going to get us in trouble.
So I will say this. There is in terms of practical elements of street jiu-jitsu versus practical elements of sport jiu-jitsu, there are more practical elements of this self-defense based system when it comes to street jiu-jitsu. There are more practical elements than there are of sport jiu-jitsu. However, that does not in any way mean that sport jiu-jitsu would not be effective in a street fight, or elements of sport jiu-jitsu wouldn't be effective in a street fight. We'll just leave it at that.
Right.
And Justin hates old people.
And
go punch an old person. Tell them Justin sent you. They'll know they'll know.
Easy Conor McGregor.
Justin, what Justin, what are you doing after this? Oh, nothing, just going to a bingo hall to start a fight.
Are bingo halls really still a thing?
Hey, Justin, what are you doing? Oh, nothing. There's a Greyhound bus leaving for Atlantic City down the street from my house. I'm going to go on there and whoop some ass.
You know, for someone who doesn't want people to think they're old, you sure know a lot of old people things and where they happen. The boom in popularity of sub-only events as opposed to IBJJF point-based fighting. And there is a division between people who prefer one and prefer the other.
And it's the only people who prefer IBJJF are the people who are successful, who are winning tournaments in IBJJF. From a viewer standpoint, from like a fan standpoint, sub only is just more exciting. I like it. I like it more. But there is a divide. There's certainly a divide there.
You want to know why we're different people? Because when you said the only people who like IBJJF or points only, my brain filled in the blank at the end of that sentence where I was going to say people who suck at leg locks, and you went the other way of like being positive about like people who are good at that point system.
Well, I mean, we can't really say that anymore because IBJJF has expanded the rule set now to include leg locks. So if you're winning at IBJJF, especially in no-gi now with heel hooks, yeah, I mean, you're good.
I think that either rule set can be gamed. A person can play the rules to their advantage, and you can still stall out in sub only. You can stall out in points tournaments. You know, it's happened to me a couple times where you get in a points tournament, you get a good wrestler on top of you who jumps into your close guard, doesn't move for the first 5.5 minutes of the match, only tries to prevent you from sweeping or attacking. Yep. And then with 30 seconds left, they do a crazy explosion to try to pass your guard, to try to get their points and win in 30 seconds. And that sucks. Sub only, I think, limits that a little bit more. And like you said, it's a little bit more exciting to watch. It's a little bit more of a fun tournament, but it's different strategies. I mean, most tournaments that you're going to pay to enter are going to be point-based tournaments. So you need to know how to play those rules, and you need to know what to expect. But I would much rather do like fight to win sub only or finishers sub only, tournaments where I can attack the whole time and not have to worry that like, oh, I went for a somewhat risky attack. I hope I don't give up any points because I got my back or they passed my guard in that attempt. I think you see a more true fight, a more true jiu-jitsu match in a sub-only tournament.
I like it. I concur with you.
The last major divide in jiu-jitsu is who is the better host.
All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and while you're at it, share it with all your friends.
If you really like this video, why not join our channel and get tons of bonus content? The link is below in the description, and we'll see you in the next video.